Hello and welcome to the Hoop Collective podcast. We talk about the NBA, which we're doing at 2 a.m. Central European time on Thursday morning. Joining us from Budapest, Hungary is Tim Bontemps.
Hello, everybody.
Joining us from Los Angeles, California, where it's still light, apparently, it's MacMahon.
Howdy, partners. I tell you what, that was a hoity-toity worldwide windy sleep update if I've ever heard one.
Well, listen, 20 minutes ago, I was at the Louvre, and we were filming this.
It just got more hoity-toity, MacMahon.
We're filming this, segment for Sports Center on the U.S. women beat Nigeria tonight, and also the men's game. And, our producer's like, let's go to the Louvre, right? Let's go to the Louvre at 1 a.m. It'll be cool, because, you don't do that every day. On our way to the Louvre, well, first off, we went to the team hotel, did an interview with Brianna Stewart. Thank you for your time. Then on the way to the Louvre, our driver witnesses an accident where this cab driver plowed into a guy on a bicycle. And thankfully, I don't think he was seriously injured, but it was the bicyclist's fault. And here's the thing: right now in Paris, there's cops on every corner, 24/7. So there was police right on top of it, but they didn't see the exact accident. So that happened. Then you get to the Louvre. The pyramid at the Louvre is closed in the middle of the night. They got guard dogs. Okay. I guess that's going to stop you from getting the Mona Lisa as guard dogs. I didn't see that in the movie, but they got them. Well, these two Swedish, I'm trying to film this thing, and these two Swedish guys break across the fence to try to go get a shot up next to the pyramid. I don't know why they did that, because you can get a shot during the day. It's open, but for some reason they had to do it. Well, the guard dogs go crazy. Meanwhile, there's a woman singing opera, like in the middle of the night. She's singing opera, and there's all these people around her clapping. And I got to record something during this.
Was she a rotund lady?
I don't know, but she had a beautiful voice.
I'm just wondering if it's over.
Anyway, what's over is the Lauri Markkanen sweepstakes.
Oh,
it was over before it started.
Oh, God.
That was smooth.
That was
like that.
Oh my God. That went from a truly reprehensible joke to a beautiful segue.
What's over is your hope that I was gonna have to walk from Park City to Salt Lake City.
We knew there wasn't a real hope of that, but it was a fleeting dream for about 24 hours.
Stick your topographical map up your something or another, okay? that was never gonna happen. He was never gonna sign the thing on August 6th. The only way that he didn't sign it after August 7th or August 7th or later was if he got traded, and nothing ever was really close there. There were a lot of discussions and no real momentum. And so for at least one more year, Lauri Markkanen will play for the Utah Jazz, and he's under contract for 5 more years at a nice fat number.
Well, I got to congratulate Lauri Markkanen and his agent, Michael Lachensky, because this was a heck of a deal. So let's first off talk about what Lauri Markkanen got in this contract. He got $238 million guaranteed. He went from $19 million guaranteed to $238 million guaranteed. That's pretty good. Okay. He went from getting $19 million this year to making $42 million this year, because they use cap space to give him money on a renegotiation and extension. I think Bobby Marks said this is the 10th time it's ever happened. It's a somewhat rare thing. It's become a little bit more common over the last few years. But he was under contract. He could have played this year. The Jazz could have paid him $19 million. There are new rules about spending, requiring, you have to spend a certain amount. It's no longer an option with certain penalties. You have to spend. So the Jazz were incentivized to do it. We talked about it on previous pods, but he ended up getting, what was it, Bontemps, 28 more million?
No, it was 24. He went from 18 to 42.
He went from 18 to 42 this year, and then he gave back, according to Bobby Marks, $12 million over what would have been what over what he could have gotten over the next 4 years as
No, I
a
don't
max
like
contract in the extension.
with all due respect, I don't like the way you framed it. He got 24 million that he wouldn't have gotten.
Correct.
No, I'm agreeing. Yeah, the framing I think is accurate.
No, you're accurate, but you're accurate.
Well, no, but we're saying the same thing. In theory, you would think if you're doing it this way, right? You go from 18 to 42 this year, right? You would think in theory, if you're the Jazz, you would say at minimum, what we would like is to get that $24 million back over the next few years because we're giving you a ton of money now we didn't have to give you, right? So to your point,
if I were the Jazz, I would want anything. I mean, there are certain things that the Jazz would want in return here. They got a couple of things, but Lauri Markkanen got $24 million this year that the Jazz didn't have to give him. And so for that,
and a no trade clause, essentially.
Well, hold on.
Not essentially.
Yeah. For that consideration, the Jazz didn't get a whole lot. So had Lauri Markkanen played this season out, become a free agent, and signed a 4-year brand new max contract, he would have gotten $250 million. Instead, he got $238. So he got $12 million less on the full amount. But because he got $24 million free dollars this year, he's still way ahead. The thing about it is, as we talked about, as the bet was about, because he waited until August 7th to sign it, he can't be traded this year under any circumstances. So the Jazz didn't get that consideration. They now cannot trade him. Okay, right now we got Lauri Markkanen getting $24 million on a contract that they didn't have to pay him, and he doesn't get traded this year. Check, Lauri. Now, what we thought was that they would structure this contract, as Bontemps, as you were saying, now to get where you were, that they would get that money back by structuring the contract so it would descend in value or maybe even be flat. And the reason you would want to do that is to make the contract more attractive to the Jazz if they wanted to keep him, more attractive if they wanted to trade him. But that's not what happened. In fact, the contract ascends. It goes 42 million this year, 46, 46, 49, 53. So I guess it sort of spins its wheels in the middle there, but it's not really a contract that you're like, wow, that's a superly tradable contract. I guess, Bontemps, the thing that the Jazz got in negotiating this way, there's no player option in the deal. So he's under contract for the full 5 years, this year plus the 4 additional years that he added, which is always good. And there's no trade kicker. So if they trade him, they don't have to worry about paying a bonus to him. But I say Lauri Markkanen had a great contract, and this is a big, giant win for Lauri Markkanen.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that this goes back to the conversation we had on the last podcast we did, which is that I think we've seen a bunch of teams not really negotiate that hard with their players. And hey, look, like you said, Lauri Markkanen got the whole boat here. He got a no trade clause. He got all the money. He got, he didn't get a player option, I guess, but he didn't get one, but he got basically everything he would want in this deal. And the Jazz didn't really get much. I mean, other than, I shouldn't say they didn't get much. They got Lauri Markkanen under contract. That's a big deal for them. He's a very good player. He's under contract now for a few years, but you just would think in this situation, the Jazz would have some ability to get back more out of this deal than just having the middle years of the deal be flat. And, like all these guys that are being signed to these deals, whether it's Franz Wagner or Evan Mobley or this deal for Lowry, or when the Kings did basically the same thing last year with Domantas Sabonis, these guys are really good players, but I'm just surprised that there haven't been more teams in these situations that have tried to get more out of these negotiations, instead essentially just saying, all right, we're just going to give you all the stuff, which in all these circumstances, that's basically what happened.
The Jazz have been saying for a long time that they want Lauri Markkanen to be part of their long-term future. And there was a lot of people who, well, that's bull. And why are they taking phone calls and, all these kind of things. There's a lot of people who were skeptical of that there, because the Jazz, like other teams, haven't always been completely forthcoming with some of their public statements. But this backs up what they've been saying. This is a contract that backs up their desire to have Lauri Markkanen as part of their long-term future. Now, it doesn't guarantee it happens. I do think he's still going to be very tradable on this deal, but they were fine with waiting until August 7th. There was no pushback, and I told you guys there wasn't going to be pushback on that. They were fine waiting. They were fine guaranteeing him 1 year of not having to worry about, or 1 season, I should say, of not having to hear any trade rumors. And then, as you guys are pointing out, he didn't get full max, but when you do the math, he basically did even better.
Yeah, I will say that, the Jazz are now sort of in the same situation that they've been the last few years, which is they are not a playoff team, but they are not at the very bottom.
I would tell you to look at the Western Conference, and again,
I'm not talking about the West. I'm talking about the race for Cooper Flag.
We'll see. I think there's a decent chance that Lauri might have some minor ailments pop up throughout the course of the season.
So you're saying he just got 24 free million and he doesn't even have to play full time? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying I think that the Jazz will end up being fairly well positioned in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes.
Well, what I'm saying is this is what they have done this several years in a row now, where they start the season kind of not at the very bottom, and then they make maneuvers during the season and they wind up with the 7th, 8th, or 9th or whatever pick. They don't end up with the better chances at the high pick. And aren't they setting themselves up to do the exact same thing again?
They're a bottom 2 team in the West. I think they'll end up being like a bottom 5 or 6 team in the league, with the flatter lottery odds. I think they're going to be pretty well positioned in this lottery. And I can tell you right now, they're not going to have to worry about whether they're giving up this year's pick, which is top 10 protected Oklahoma City. that pick ain't going to Oklahoma City this year.
I do think Brian's point is valid, though, in that they really picked a direction here in general with what they've been doing. They got a bunch of veterans under long-term deals. They've now signed Lauri to this deal after obviously there was a lot of talk about him possibly being traded. It just still does feel like they're kind of stuck in the middle between trying to build around this guy or trying to cash in all the chips and trade. Basically the same situation the Brooklyn Nets were in. They traded Mikal Bridges for a ton of stuff, picked the direction. Jazz still feel like they haven't made that step yet.
Yeah, the big difference is Brooklyn didn't have its own draft capital until they had to go back and get it. And the Jazz, aside from this top 10 protected pick, do. Look, I think that you're going to see player development be the priority this year in Utah. I think you're going to see young guards get a whole lot of minutes. And, right now, Jordan Clarkson and Colin Sexton are on the roster. I am not so sure that'll be the case after the deadline. We'll see.
They both have 2 years left. So this is what Bontemps is talking about. Like Sexton and Clarkson, if they had 1 year on their contract, I think they would be, but Sexton has 2 years.
And John Collins essentially has 2 years left too.
Right.
So John Collins, that's really the one that I didn't really get that at the time, and I don't get it now. To me, it's, he doesn't fit there. He has a significant salary. Like, they gave up nothing to get him, but
let me go over their big contracts. So now Markkanen can't be traded. He's he's got 5 years, 238. John Collins has this year guaranteed on his contract at 26.5 million, and then the 25-26 is a player option. We'll see what he does. Bontemps is saying he doesn't think he's going to opt out of that, and I would say the league would agree with that.
There's no way he's opted out of it.
Yeah. I would advise him not to.
So it's 2 years and 53 million on John Collins' contract, essentially. Colin Sexton has 2 years and about 39 million left, 38 million left. Jordan Clarkson has 2 years and about 28.5 million left. So, those are, guys that you can put into a big trade, but,
And listen,
not sure there's a lot of interest in any of them anywhere.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think probably Sexton would have the most interest, but I would say if there was a ton of interest in him, he probably would have been moved by now.
Correct.
Again, though, I think that you're gonna see young guys play uh, uh, a lot of minutes, and there might be some uncomfortable situations there if they're playing, say, a Taylor Hendricks over a John Collins. If they're playing, one of these young guards, taking minutes away from Jordan Clarkson, but for the best interest of the franchise, I think those are things that need to happen for real player development and for quote the air quote player development. And there's a decent chance there'll be another at least medium-sized salary on the roster, because what they've done now, they signed their first-round picks because those are, salary slots that were on the books regardless. But Filipowski hasn't signed. He'll be signed into a second-round exception. Johnny Juzang hasn't signed the deal he agreed to. That's going to be signed to do, I forgot which exception, but an exception. And then Drew Eubanks hasn't signed the deal he agreed to. That's going to be signed into their little mid-level. So they've still got about 10 million in cap space, so they can take a salary dump from somebody else. And,
maybe they can trade for Russell Westbrook again.
I tell you what, man, Russ has made a nice chunk of change from the Utah Jazz without ever playing a game in their uniform.
That's true. I don't think I'm not equipped to verify this, but I'm not sure that a player has ever been acquired in a salary dump twice by the same team. Maybe. Maybe Chris Gatling was back in the day. Remember Luke Ridnour got traded like 6 times in 5 days. Maybe that happened twice.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to talk about here is something about the Golden State Warriors. So the Warriors have hunted for new talent, and actions over words, regardless of what they say. They tried to trade for Paul George. They offered stuff for Paul George. It didn't happen. Then they tried to trade for Lauri Markkanen. They offered some of the same stuff for Lauri Markkanen.
They didn't try that hard though. They had discussions, but like Podziemski was completely off the table. They didn't even reach the threshold.
I understand.
For draft capital.
I understand. The point is they had legitimate conversations about trading for Paul George and Lauri Markkanen, and they offered stuff for them. Obviously, it wasn't enough to get it done. You are correct. Mm-hmm. So what I would say is, let's keep that in mind, that we've seen this many times in the history of the league, where you see a team with something burning a hole in their pocket, and it takes a while, but they find a deal. They find a deal. Now, I'm not saying that deal's going to happen this summer, but keep in mind that Golden State has now gone after 2 significant players. And also,
we saw it with the Knicks, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They went shopping with those picks and for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and let's see what Golden State's season looks like. Like if they are a team that's in the top 4 or 6 in the West and looking like they can be. Hold on. If they're a team that's in the playoffs in the West and looks like it could be a contender, I suspect there'll be a different level of aggression than if they're fighting to be in the top 10, right? And like the fact they didn't make the move now this summer means when you get into the season, then you start getting into the factors of how the team is playing that weigh on that kind of stuff. Because right now, obviously, they've been trying to get guys to help this team have one more run with Steph and now Draymond Green. If they're fighting to get past teams in 10th and 11th in the West, I think the appetite to do that will look a lot different.
Yeah. So I think also let's see what happens with Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody and whether they get contract extensions done. Because and I'm not expecting, rookie scale extensions don't usually get done in August. You see a bunch get done usually in July, and then you don't see them get done usually until at the start of training camp or right near the deadline in October. But we've seen, a handful of maxes, but we really haven't seen guys from the that draft class sub max sign. And so we'll see. We'll see if Kuminga and Moody do get contracts, because if they do, then they're probably not going to be traded. If they don't, then they're very strong. Well, may not very, but they're candidates to be traded. And if you look at the Warriors roster, especially after December 15th, they got a lot of guys on expiring contracts.
And a lot of those are those, nice sized contracts that you can put into trades pretty easily.
Right.
So a lot of those medium-sized contracts.
Right. So you got DeAnthony Melton. And I know he hasn't played 1 second, but I'm just saying it's a 1-year contract he signed at 12.8. Gary Payton, 9.1. Kevon Looney, 8. We'll see about Kuminga and Moody, but that's 7.5 and 5.8. There's stuff they can do. And in Bontemps is correct. By the way, real quick, I was doing a live shot today on the Sen, and I had a fine French gentleman come up to introduce himself to me.
Yes, Tommy Good Times.
And he said his name was, I think he actually said his name was Tomas, but he said, you can call me Tom Bontemps. And he said, I am the real Bontemps.
Whoa, take that, USWB.
Yeah.
He's the real French one, that's for sure.
Yes. And Bontemps, good times, yes, but it also means good weather.
Good weather?
And say good weather.
Does mean
weather.
both.
Well, that's typical Bontemps. He'll pee on your leg and tell you it's raining.
I don't think that's quite what that means, but
anyway,
I could be wrong.
So I would just say that the Warriors didn't get action here on a big deal. And if you want to go back to the trade deadline where they had some level of conversation about LeBron James, that still is one of the that's one of those things where you hear and you find it so ridiculous that you kind of let it go. But there was some conversation that they had about that, and that would not have been for nothing. So
you think?
when they called on him, so I'm going to go all the way back to February. When they had that conversation, there was something that they were going to offer to trade. Now, maybe it was Klay Thompson, but they have now gone through 3 players that we know of, star level players. Not that Markkanen and LeBron are on the same level, but they've taken some bites at the apple here.
Yeah, the action, again, actions over words. The action is they clearly want to try to give Steph one more real run at it. And we will see as the season goes on. I think we'll get a much better sense of whether that's a realistic outcome. Because if they are flailing around in the play-in mix, I don't think they're making a deal like that.
But I was going to say, there wasn't any action for them in the playoffs last year. I mean, it's not like this team is just a piece away.
Well, but again, if you want to play devil's advocate, because I have taken a bit of this position already this year, they were a couple games out of being in the top 4 or 5 in the West last year, with Draymond Green being suspended for 15 games. And if he managed to just not be suspended and the players they brought in are better fits than the Klay fit was, which I think you can make a pretty good argument is true, then if Steph Curry's still an all-NBA guard, you've got a chance to have a pretty good team. And then if you add a piece to it, then maybe you can make a run. But
let me ask you this. That
goes back to Steph having to be really, really good and Draymond Green having to be available. Both those things are going to be questions.
Let me ask you this, MacMahon. Let's say they had gotten a Markkanen trade done, and let's not dwell on what Utah might have gotten. Let's just say that Podziemski wouldn't have been in the deal, but they would, on the other side of it, they would have had Markkanen, Draymond Green, Steph Curry, and Podziemski. If that was the deal we were talking about today, where would you think the Warriors would be?
All right, we're flying on a Pegasus unicorn here because
I get it, but my point is that's what they're looking at. That's the team that they were thinking that they might have on the other side of it. So
yeah, I guess the problem with that whole thing is I don't think they can make that kind of a trade. They certainly couldn't have gotten Markkanen without Podziemski. I don't think they can get a real
That's a fair point.
co-star type of player without putting Podziemski in the deal. Now, if you want to put on your optimistic blue and gold Golden State hat, what you're saying is, hey, another part of this equation is you're banking on Podziemski coming off of a really good rookie season, getting better and better and better, being an ascending talent. I think I saw somebody talking about him as an all-star type of talent. I think that's a little bit bold and certainly premature.
This year?
Well, not this year, but
okay.
Long-term potential wise. I would agree that's aggressive.
They've got to have him make a leap to be in the mix, honestly, probably to be a top 6 team, certainly to be a team that's any kind of a real threat. But again, I think to get that last massive piece, it's going to be difficult to not include him in the deal. And understandably, because they like the player and they love the contract, they're not willing to have discussions that include him at this point.
Well, look, I think the biggest thing with Golden State is they have acted this summer like a team that believes on some level that Steph and Draymond are good enough to be the 2 best guys on a team that can go really far. Right? That's how they've acted. Because they've at least tried on really good players. I'm not saying
I agree with you. I agree with you on Steph, but if they'd have gotten Paul George, Draymond would not have been the second best player. If they'd have gotten Markkanen, it's debatable.
Okay. Two of the 3 core guys, however you want to frame it, right? They're the 2 guys. And to me, the question with Golden State is 6 months from now, when we're at the trade deadline, are we going to think Steph and Draymond are those kind of players, or will they have taken a step back? And I think that will determine a lot about the next couple of years for Golden State.
Steph is 36 years old. To mortgage your future in the hopes of a guy who's going to be 37 come playoff time, carrying you on another championship run, that's a tough thing to make, man.
This is why I keep bringing up the Steph thing, because that is the question with Golden State. It's how long can he play at this level? And if he starts to go the other way, all of a sudden, the whole conversation around that team is totally different than the one that's been had over the last several weeks. Or it's, maybe they can get Paul George, maybe they get Lauri Markkanen, and then they could be in the mix in the West. Well, they're only in the mix in the West if Steph is awesome and a top 10-ish player in the league. He's, as you said, a smaller guard getting to 37. Like, he's been one of the historical anomalies in the history of the league, but at some point that's going to start to go the other way. And if it does this season, these conversations about these kind of players and making these kind of trades, they're going to stop. I would assume, because it wouldn't, to your point, it would make no sense to do that when you're talking about a guy who's in his late 30s and you're trying to mortgage the future around a guy who's going the other way. That's why the next few months and where Steph's at are going to be awfully interesting to monitor.
Well, Steph is shooting 30. What is it now? Let me get the exact number. Steph is shooting 36%. He's
positively scorching compared to Jamal Murray.
Well, Jamal Murray is on vacation. To pivot, the timing isn't so great for when this pod is posting for when these games are happening. But so it was interesting to be in Bercy Arena, which is my first visit there. The arena here in Paris. It's been around since the early 90s, but it's my first visit there, and it's made out of grass. I didn't know. The outer,
so it's like a large hut?
Yes. The outer walls of the arena are grass.
So like the Barclays thing?
Yes, but
the whole thing?
Yeah, it's not just Barclays. I think the Target Center also has basically a garden on the roof. But this is the sides of the building.
The whole thing.
Grass. Yes. And I don't know how they cut it because it's built vertically. I've asked several people how they cut it, and nobody had an answer for me.
Do you think maybe like they have people with scissors? That would be a
weed whacker
consuming task.
I don't even think a weed whacker would work because you can't stand on it.
No,
You would
not that
fall.
kind of grass. It's not weed. It's just regular grass.
Yeah. Also, there was you move around the outs. You come out of it and move around the outside of it to get around the arena. It's not. I mean, it is self-contained, but you're moving around. When you're going from one part of the arena to the other, you're outside. And some people who are allergic to grass or whatever were having an allergic reaction. Anyway,
how's the air conditioning?
Spectacular. No complaints about the air conditioning. Great work.
Good.
Great work.
Good.
But it was rocking on Tuesday night because the French upset the Canadians. And the France has had an amazing few days, and it's probably not been as out there in the basketball social media world because so much of it is written about in French, but it's been interesting. So the French, in short, the French lost to the Germans in the final round of pool play. They still advanced, but they scored 70 points. And Evan Fournier went to the media afterwards and basically said, and you're going to have to give me some latitude here on these quotes because I don't know the exact translations because I've seen it different ways. But essentially, he said that we're focusing too much on offense and not enough on defense, and that's the head coach who's deciding that. We need to we need to make decisions for our offense, not our defense.
That's why they benched a 4-time defensive player of the year. His childhood buddy Fournier got him benched.
Essentially. And when the French reporters went to Vincent Collet, the head coach, well-respected coach in France, he basically said Fournier was out of line. And Fournier was like, "Oh, I wasn't trying to be out of line. I don't think I was out of line. I just think that our best offense or our best defense is our offense," which is an old school thing that I haven't heard that since for years. So the game happens and Collet benches Fournier and Gobert.
And Gobert, yes.
I think he changed 3 of his starters, put Victor at center to go small against the Canadians, which, by the way, regardless of what Fournier said, was a good move because the Canadians play small and they don't have great bigs. It's one of their weaknesses. And the guys that he puts into the starting lineup, not, well-known French players, but not guys who have excelled really on the international stage. Former Celtic Gerson Yabusele.
The pick from the Dallas Rondo deal.
I mean, just to pause for a second, because are we really going to say that this was a good thing that he did, or are we just going to say they got really lucky that they shot the lights out in this game?
They won the game, which makes the coaching adjustments difficult to
correct.
Correct. Go on, Wendy, with what those adjustments were.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. This is exactly what happened. They brought in sort of also ran players who delivered in a huge way.
Yeah, Yabusele is a very good EuroLeague player.
True, but he's an also ran player. Whatever. We're not going to debate that. It was an amazing moment, and I have to tell you, I went on French Twitter after the game and just simply searched Fournier and Collet.
Oh, Fournier, don't do it on Google. On Twitter, I guess is okay.
You're right. And I would translate the posts, and I just couldn't stop laughing.
Well, and what you're leaving out here is that Fournier, who basically got demoted, dominated crunch time.
That's right.
One of these shots of the Olympics, he got thrown a grenade about 40-something feet from the hoop by, I think it was Wimby who threw him the grenade, and launches a 40-footer that went in. That was the dagger to beat the Canadians, which, listen, Canada's got the second most talented had the second most talented roster in the Olympics. I mean, this is a huge win. in a game that Rudy Gobert played 3 minutes and 41 seconds. You had the whole messiness of Gobert saying, my finger was hurt. I had surgery,
hold on. Let's
saying,
not rush past that. We'll get to that in a second.
But the Fournier, who was at odds with the coach, was the hero of crunch time in this game.
That's right. He threw in some crazy shots, and after he hits I don't know how far it was, many feet. I don't know how many meters it was, but the Canadians call timeout because they're cooked, and Fournier comes over and grabs his coach's head in quasi celebration, and I don't think the coach liked it. But
listen, that team's got all sorts of personalities on it all over the place.
Well, and listen, I'm gonna stick up for Fournier and Gobert a little bit here, because Fournier is not an NBA player right now. He's not on a team, but he's had a
he's on the. I don't think. They cut him.
Yeah, I don't think he's on a roster. Point being, he's had a very good NBA career. Gobert's had a great NBA career, and they have had phenomenal careers for the French national team. I mean, if you talk about
and always play.
Players, yeah, if you're talking about the best players in French basketball history, Tony Parker, and then those two guys might be 2-3. They've won a silver medal in the Olympics. They've won Eurobasket medals and World Cup medals. And like you said, Bontemps, unlike the majority of NBA stars who playing for their national team is a summer by summer decision, these guys for the last, whatever it's been, dozen years or so, decade plus, have been every single summer fully committed, fully on board. They've earned a measure of respect. And I think it would be understandable if they feel like they are being disrespected by their coach right now.
And my point about Collet is that Isaiah Cordinier and Gershon Yabusele combined to go 6 for 9 from 3 in this game.
Right. That's right.
And the Canadians as a team shot 5 for 21.
That's
so
right.
Victor.
It was a rough Dylan Brooks game.
Yeah, Dylan Brooks was Victor playing
Brooks,
at the 5.
Dylan Brooks
2 for 10.
Yeah, and Dylan Brooks had something to do with that. One piece of advice I'd give Victor Wembanyama is if Dylan Brooks is defending you, just don't dribble the ball.
Well, this has been my one criticism of Victor for a year now, which is I would just like him to dribble less and just be a play finisher more than attempting to be a play creator. I think that's fair. At least for now. Someday in the future, maybe he'll be doing. I mean, Ryan has, I think, very fairly said you're not going to put any limits on Victor. I think that's fair. But in the moment, when especially when you're trying to win games in the Olympics, just finish the plays. Just finish the plays.
That's what the guy who just got $238 million does. He's known as the finisher.
That is true.
Yeah. So Victor did not make much of an impact on this game, which was interesting. So Gobert plays.
He didn't make much of a scoring impact. He made an impact defensively.
That's true.
For sure.
It was a very big disappointment for Canada. And what essentially happened, and this is actually a good lesson for Team USA, not that they need it, but the lineup changes and the energy that those guys came out with, and the players, including Fournier, did say that there was apparently quite a speech made by the French head coach. The energy which they came out with, which was exacerbated by the energy in the crowd. So you have a very energetic crowd. You have guys coming in the starting lineup. You just have the fortune that happened where they hit a bunch of shots. Canada was flat-footed, and all of a sudden they're down 17-5 or 19-6 or something like that. And in a 40-minute game, that's, especially when you're quote unquote on the road, I mean, that's hard to overcome. In an NBA game, you wouldn't even blink. You would say, okay,
well, and Jamal Murray and Dylan Brooks combined to go 4 for 22.
Also, RJ Barrett had his worst game.
I will say, I'm not going to.
RJ still was pretty good.
I'm not going to give him too much of a pass on digging out of a hole is hard to do when the Germans were down a dozen and the Serbians were down 24.
24, yeah.
I agree, but what that just sort of follows through with it, which is that if, when you're a favorite and you fall down by double digits, maybe you can get out of it, maybe you can't. And that's actually what Steve Kerr told the team. The U.S. had the last game of the day, and it was almost like an NCAA tournament day, where there's four games at the same site. And Steve Kerr's like, listen, Greece was up 12 on Germany in the first quarter. Canada was getting beat by I think 18 or something in the first quarter, and Serbia
Australia's up 24.
Australia got 24, but they got up double digits in the first quarter. And Kerr was like, let's not get down by double digits in the first quarter to Brazil, please. And I don't know, maybe it made no difference, but the U.S. established the lead early. So let me just tell you what happened with Gobert. So Gobert plays 3 minutes in this game. Now, it's the game plan that the coach put out there worked brilliantly, and Bontemps could be right. It could be just a matter of circumstance. But Gobert plays 3 minutes. France gets their biggest win since the 2021 Olympics, and arguably one of their biggest wins, really, of the last decade, because they're playing at home and they pull off a big upset. And Gobert plays 3 minutes, and he comes to the interviews after the game, and his finger is all wrapped up. Which, MacMahon, was it wrapped up during the game? I don't remember.
I honestly, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. So he says, yeah, I had surgery. And he said this in English, I'm pretty sure. He said, I had surgery. This is not a translation.
Some of our colleagues suddenly learn French.
Right. But what I'm saying is it's not something that got lost in translation.
Yeah.
He said he used the word surgery. And, I was just lucky I was able to play at all. And so it was like, wow, he had some sort of injury and had surgery and was gutting through it. So unlike in the NBA, where the coach typically speaks first and then we talk to the players, at the Olympics, the players speak first and then we talk to the coach. So the players go through. It's a triumphant moment for France. And the coach, Collet, comes out and gets asked about, hey, by the way, what about Gobert? And he goes, he didn't have surgery. It's like, oh, that's an interesting development. And the reason he didn't play that much is because I made a matchup decision. Basically, I decided I was benching him. Had nothing to do with surgery.
Yeah. And again, for a guy who's meant so much to French basketball, golly, the coach couldn't give him just a wee bit, little bit of cover.
Well, and again, this is all but again, this goes back to my point about Collette's decision-making here. And this also is very typical of how a lot of these European coaches handle things. If you're going to do this thing and you're going to split the bigs up, then play Rudy Gobert the minutes that's not on the court.
That's what really surprised me is it wasn't necessarily a shock that Gobert got pulled from the starting lineup because we'd seen that happen, I believe, in the last couple of games in the second half. So that part didn't necessarily shock me, but Gobert not playing, there was a lot of time when neither one of them was on the floor. Gobert not getting the second unit minutes shocked me. And I will say, Matthias Lassort, who a EuroLeague player, he had a pretty good game. And Collet can say, hey, we went with the offensive minded bigs. You can make that claim. But man,
their defense was their offense.
Yeah, and I honestly, I was also pretty surprised that as they were protecting a double-figure lead in the fourth quarter, that they didn't put Rudy in the game. They didn't put their best defensive lineup out there. It worked out for them, so you can't necessarily second guess it. But and obviously I know Rudy very well. I was watching, he was engaged on the bench. He's standing, he's cheering, he's communicating with teammates during timeouts and all that stuff. But man, I know, I don't know what injury he has with his finger right now. Nobody really does.
I think he basically had a laceration.
Yeah.
And he had stitches. And he did have an MRI, but he did have some sort of procedure. And I guess,
sure. I mean,
surgery is, I guess it's a relative term, but
and so he ends up a poor guy who just, Rudy has a tendency to end up looking very bad. And he certainly did with that whole thing. But I know Rudy very well. Plus I've got 8 years worth of college, which gives me enough of a medical degree to diagnose a deep pride contusion. That's what he has right now. He definitely has a deep
a
pride
DPC.
contusion. And
Well,
again, this is a guy who, he shows up for France every single summer.
I know they've been looking
and has
forward to
had
this
a
for
lot of
6-7 years.
success.
Yeah.
Again, they've
well,
had
right, and
success
and
World
this has
Cup,
been the thing they've been
Eurobasket,
building
Olympics.
to. Yeah,
Yeah. And
Yeah.
now exactly. And it's here or it's there in Paris, in their home country. And I mean, God, the coach basically humiliated the guy.
Well, we'll see what happens against Germany. Germany gets a break. The Canada is not there. But they got to play France in France. So we'll see. That's coming up on Thursday.
I'll be very surprised if Germany doesn't win that game.
I would be too. I'll be very curious to see how the officiating goes.
Well, I mean, it's a FIBA game, so anything is in play with that, certainly.
So for the U.S. with Serbia, as you guys know, I think Serbia is a real significant threat. I have been saying
despite
that.
all evidence to the contrary,
I know.
the entire summer.
I know.
Well, no, not all evidence. They were even with Joker on the floor last game. That's not all
Sure.
evidence.
Okay, sure.
All
They
I'm
have
gonna
looked
say
bad. They have looked bad the whole tournament, and they got very, very fortunate to escape from this game against Australia.
I mean, he's
the
not
other day.
predicting they're going to freaking beat Team USA. He's just
I
saying they're as big a threat as there is
understand.
in the tournament.
I understand. It's just after the first game, Brian said that there was no way they should be 16-point underdogs, and they lost by 25, and they just haven't looked very good all summer at all, at any point.
Everything you're saying is correct. Everything you're saying is correct.
Not saying, I mean, they have Nikola Jokic. We'll see what happens, but
Yeah. So also, I don't think that Jokic is. I don't think Jokic and his coach are like best buddies, and I don't think his coach wants to be his best buddy either.
I don't know if that guy's on your team. You might want to.
Well,
that's not how they roll. I mean, this guy.
Yeah, this goes back to the European coach stereotypical stubbornness thing of we've got arguably the best player on the planet, and we're going to have him be a decoy.
Honestly, it's a lot like college coaches where, dude, your system ain't the featured attraction.
Well, that's exactly right.
Correct.
The system. Well, first off, the Serbian way is the system. So, I mean, the coach is Serbian. He's coached other teams. He coached in Barcelona in '92. He was coaching Germany. He coached the Yugoslavian team when they won the world championship in 2002. I mean, he's coached all over Europe. But he's definitely like, I have a system and the system works. And like, there's a reason why they use the system because of certain rules and FIBA and stuff. But, there's an exception to the rule. And, at the end of the day, Jokic is going to be on the court for the overwhelming majority of the game. He rested him 9 minutes the first game, and he rested him 7 minutes during regulation against Australia. I got to believe he's getting less rest than that against the U.S.
He's going to have to play 40 minutes with a cape on for them to have any chance. I
agree. They also made 31 3-pointers in the two games combined. The U.S. did. Their 3-point shooting was...
I'll just go back to the way the U.S. played against Brazil. I know it's Brazil and not Serbia. But if Team USA is locked in and engaged, they're by far the best team. These games should not be very competitive. They should win this game by 20 or more. Like, they should. Doesn't mean they will.
Yeah.
They could shoot 4 for 30 from 3 or whatever. But if they are engaged and focused and locked in, this game shouldn't be competitive.
The thing about Team USA, and this is really hard to put together in 1 month, but they have, and Steve Kerr gets credit, his coaching staff gets credit, and the players for sure get credit. They have an identity. And their identity is that they're going to share. They're going to share the ball. They're going to share minutes. They're going to share responsibility. They're going to share the pressure. They're going to share the credit. They're going to share the blame. They're all in there to share. Like, they got 10 guys averaging between 18 and 21 minutes. They got 10 guys averaging 7 points. They got none of them average more than like 10 and a half shots. None of them average less than like 6.
Well, it all goes back to all these guys from the beginning, all signing up to be part of this thing and being this fired up to be part of it. And they're all cool with playing 18 to 20 minutes and scoring 8 or 10 points. And
yeah, I think there are moments
cool
when they're
with it.
not cool with it. I mean, I think
sure, like we've talked about the whole time with all this stuff, it doesn't mean it's perfect for every second of it, but everybody came into it. It isn't like the French team. It isn't like Team USA situations in the past where you had, weird roster situations or imbalanced teams or awkward fits. Like, there's an overwhelming talent advantage. And if you couple that with playing hard and focused, like, these teams should not be competitive. Serbia starting Filip Petrusev, no disrespect to him, good EuroLeague player. He's going to be guarding LeBron James in theory. Like, that's not a fair matchup.
He's doing very good on offense, Petrusev, but he is not excelling.
He's a good player. I mean, he's a really good EuroLeague player. He was with the Sixers in training camp last year. Like, he's a good player. He also was not LeBron James. Like, it's very basic math here. Like, they should win the game by 20, and we'll see if they do.
And LeBron James is LeBron James, and he is LeBron Jamesing.
He's still LeBron James. Nearing 40 years old, he is still LeBron James.
I don't remember.
Honestly, it's amazing. It's amazing though, to see these games where, he's playing with a bunch of all-stars, and he's still, like, by far the best athlete on the floor.
That's crazy.
Damn near 40.
His physique is wild, even by someone who's seen him for decades. His physique right now is wild.
Dude, he is, I don't know what he weighs, but it's got to be 270 or so. And he is like a racehorse when he gets the ball in the open floor. It is unbelievable to watch him with the head of steam.
After the game the other day, he was being asked by a foreign journalist, Rafa Nadal had just lost in the Olympics. And it was like, people were asking him, are you retiring? Are you retiring? So people have asked him a lot the last couple of years. And Nadal was like, I'm tired of people asking me about whether I'm retiring. Stop asking about it. It's not, And so this journalist, I think she was Spanish, but I don't know. She was asking about whether LeBron gets tired of being asked about retiring. And he goes, actually, not that many people ask him about retiring.
The only time people ask him about retiring is when they get swept. He throws it out as a possibility. Someone talks about them getting swept.
Yeah.
When else have we talked about it? Because the guy's still an all-NBA player.
He's still one of the 15 best players on the planet.
He goes,
and quibble with the number on the list, but he's still one of the 15 best by any metric.
Yeah, he goes, for some reason, people think I'm going to play another 10 years. And honestly, I was standing right there.
If he played 5 more?
I was standing right there.
If he doesn't have a serious injury, there's no reason he couldn't play 5 more. That's obvious.
He goes, people keep thinking for some reason that I'm going to play another 10 years. And I was standing like literally a foot from him, and I go, please do.
It's good for business. What was his response to that?
He just smiled. He's been in a tremendous mood. He's been so engaged. He was almost playing the perfect game against Brazil. He threw 5 or 6 passes in the first half. I think he had 6 assists in like an 8 possession span at one point.
Yeah, and some of them were just beautiful passes.
He's thrown 3 passes in this Olympics so far that are absolutely incredible. One was the alley-oop to Jason Tatum right at the end of the first half from, 40 or 50 feet, where the ball went up at like a 41-degree angle.
I'd have to get out is it a protractor or what's the thing you do?
It was just like the angle was crazy. The ball had to stay at such an angle to get over the man in between him and Tatum, but not be too high for Tatum to catch it. And the ball was at the exact perfect angle. And Tatum caught this ball. It was an inbounds play. He threw it diagonal across the court over one guy's head, past another guy's arm, and Tatum caught the ball and dunked it. It was like a catcher throwing to a guy at second base, and the guy sort of tagging himself out. The guy caught the ball and the glove was right there to tag the guy. That's where it was. Like Tatum caught the ball and he didn't even have to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
He just dropped it into the rim and he just sort of hung on the rim like, I can't believe that just happened. So that was one pass. In the previous game, he was out on the right wing with his back to the basket. So his back is to the basket. He's out on the right wing and he throws a pass with his right hand backwards behind his back. A bounce pass to Joel Embiid standing in the lane. And it had like side spin English on it.
Yeah.
And
it hit Embiid right in the hands.
It would have been an excellent pass if he was standing looking straight at him. And the thing about it was how casual. It was, the casualness of it was unbelievable.
Well,
So
Steve Kerr said it perfectly when he said that LeBron has scored more points than anybody in the history of the league, and it's a secondary skill.
And LeBron loves pointing that out.
Well, and his passing is otherworldly. Always has been.
and he's
What was
passing
What was the
great.
third pass?
That was in the first, I think I talked about in the previous pod. It was in the first game. He threw a pass to Durant, which I compared. I was already compared him to like Pudge Rodriguez here. Now I'm going to compare him to Patrick Mahomes. He threw Durant open. Durant was covered and he threw the ball where Durant needed to go. And Durant went and caught it and turned around, hit this shot again, an inbounds pass from half court. Now Kerr drew that play up. So he got when the Tatum play happened, which was also an out of bounds play right at the end of the half. They both happened in the last second of the first half from out of bounds. And so people thought that maybe Kerr drew that one up too. And Kerr was like, hell no, I didn't draw that up. I have no idea how he made that play.
Dude, the thing that pass was such a line drive. I mean, usually, you talk about an alley-oop, a lob, it's a rainbow type of pass. That thing was on a rope.
41 degrees is what I'm going with for the angle that came up off LeBron. So he's playing great. He is the leader, I think, for MVP. If there's 2 humongous games left, but if you had to vote today, he'd be the leader for MVP. And I started to think about this. He's got 4 NBA regular season MVPs. He's got 4 finals MVPs. I think he's got 2 All-Star game MVPs. It might be 3, but he's got multiple. He, of course, won the inaugural in-season tournament MVP.
Oh.
This is the last outstanding MVP. They only brought the MVP back in the last Olympics for Tokyo. Durant won it.
Oh, okay.
And I have no idea who votes on it.
They didn't give Worldwide Wendy a vote?
I highly doubt it. I was critical of FIBA recently, and
oh my!
I thought when they scanned my credential that it might not work when I went.
How are your seats?
I have no complaints about anything.
No, yes, you do. I can tell.
I don't.
Here comes. I don't like the diplomat.
No complaints
that comes out on occasion. I like the guy who
he has no complaints about anything after spending the first 15 minutes of the last podcast blasting the merchandise.
Yeah, I like the guy who.
Well, that has nothing to do with FIBA.
Just saying,
I'm sure if FIBA could sell gear, they would. FIBA does sell gear at the World Cup. This is. By the way, have you heard anybody come to the defense of the merchandise?
No, I just saw the aggregators run wild with your correct takes on the merchandise. That's what I saw.
I like the flaming lip.
You know what? By the way, you guys point something out to me, and now I can't unsee it. I was showing you here. Let me get it.
No, here goes.
Oh, we're back again.
I was showing you this logo. Yeah, let me show you that logo.
Yeah, I said it immediately. It's a mouth on there.
I didn't So now when you look at it as that's a mouth, this now looks like a woman with a bob haircut.
Oh, yes. No, when I was in Paris on my honeymoon, there was a urinal that I visited that had lips. And that's what that looks like.
It's time to go.
Where was that at? No, but seriously, if you look at this logo, now look at this logo. Yes, it's supposed to be.
It's time to go.
It's supposed to be the silhouette of a torch. But it actually, when you see that as a lip at the bottom, it looks like a woman with a bob haircut.
No, I think it's supposed to be lips. Like Paris, the city of loves, smooches and all that kind of stuff.
But what is the reason for this haircut? Like, what is that?
You're the hair expert. I got a buzz cut. What the hell do I know? You sold out the buzz cut
I
crew
can't.
when you went
I
all
can't.
Hollywood.
I can't unsee it.
How is your products scene there? You've been gone for a while. It looks like you're still in stock.
Yeah, the problem is, my hair is it gets sideways very quickly. By the way, my son is gonna be, where's my, I did go to a proper store today and get my son some gear. That was proper
what do you mean
gear,
a proper store?
not an Olympic endorsed merchandise situation.
Oh, where'd you go?
I went to a outlet from an American company that sells merchandise and knows better. But
Do you want to give them a shout out to the company? Try to get some free stuff?
No, I don't do that.
Oh, please. Do you do it for product?
No, I don't.
Your beloved, I've heard you do it for your beloved hair product.
Hair product.
You can't run away from that one.
I don't take gear. Well, the funny thing about that is I got the wrong hair product. I told you that, right?
Oh, yeah.
You did. That's true.
I don't know what I did with it. Maybe I'm afraid I lost it. But anyway, my son will be getting some PSG gear. So
here, look. Here's the urinal that I was referring to.
Oh my God.
I took a picture.
All right, it's 3:15 in the morning. It's time to
All
go.
right. Thank you for listening and watching the Hoop Collective podcast. Thank you to Jackson. Thank you to Bontemps. Thank you to MacMahon. Team USA's got a big game in 12 hours. I'm not going to sleep much.
Start with a sleep update in
the game is in 18 hours if we're getting done with that.
You're right. You're exactly right. Go
to sleep.
All right.
Adios, amigos.
There you go.
Go to sleep.